The Galactic Council's science delegation arrived at the neutral space station with all the pomp and ceremony their ancient civilization demanded. Ambassador Thelkazair of the Vryn Collective led the procession, his crystalline exoskeleton refracting the station's lights into rainbow patterns. Behind him floated the renowned physicist Dr. Morathin, a being of pure energy contained within a magnetic field, and the insectoid engineer Clickstar, whose compound eyes gleamed with scientific curiosity. They had come to see the impossible. Humanity, those upstart primates who had only achieved faster-than-light travel a mere 2 centuries ago, claimed to have built a Dreadnought. Not just any warship, but a vessel that reportedly dwarfed anything in the known galaxy. The Council had laughed at first. Humans were newcomers, barely past their first intergalactic war, still struggling with basic plasma shielding technology that the Vryn had perfected 10,000 years ago. But then the scans came back. The energy signatures. The mass readings. The gravitational distortions. The laughter had stopped. "This is highly irregular," Thelkazair announced as they entered the docking bay where the human representative waited. In 3 million years of recorded galactic history, no species has ever denied the Council's scientific delegation access to military technology. Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Navy stood in her crisp uniform, hands clasped behind her back, a polite smile on her face that didn't reach her eyes. She was young by human standards, barely 40, but her posture spoke of military discipline honed to perfection. "Ambassador," she said with a slight nod. "Welcome to Bastion Station. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. We haven't denied access. We've simply, strongly advised against it." Dr. Morathin's energy field pulsed with indignation. "Advised? Your species has been part of the galactic community for less than 2 standard cycles. You do not advise the Council. The Council advises you." Sarah's smile remained fixed. "Of course, Doctor. However, the UEN Absolute Zero is not a typical vessel. We've had incidents during previous inspections." "Incidents?" Clickstar clicked, mandibles twitching with interest. "Define incidents." "Well," Sarah said carefully, "the last delegation, from the Forian technocracy, 3 of their members required immediate psychological counseling. One refused to leave his quarters for 2 months. Another filed 17 pages of formal complaints about excessive and gratuitous militarism. And their head scientist wrote a rather disturbing paper titled 'The Humans Are Preparing for Something and We Should All Be Very Concerned.'" Thelkazair waved a crystalline appendage dismissively. "The Forians are a pacifist species. They find violence in a raised voice. We of the Vryn Collective have witnessed the rise and fall of empires. We have fought in the War of the Burning Suns. We do not frighten easily." "I'm sure you don't," Sarah agreed. "The inspection shuttle is ready when you are." The Absolute Zero hung in space like a monument to human excess. It stretched nearly 20 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull a dark gray that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Unlike the elegant, curved designs of most galactic vessels, the Dreadnought was all brutal angles and functional geometry, a flying fortress that made no apologies for its purpose. As the shuttle approached, Dr. Morathin ran his scanners continuously. "Remarkable," he murmured. "The energy output alone, they've got at least 15 fusion reactors running. Why would they need so much power?" "Perhaps their systems are inefficient," Clickstar suggested. "Young species often overcompensate with raw power rather than elegant engineering." The shuttle docked with a heavy clang that resonated through the hull. The airlock opened, and Captain Chen gestured for them to enter. "Welcome aboard the Absolute Zero. Please stay with the group and don't touch anything marked with red warning symbols. Or yellow ones. Actually, just don't touch anything without asking first." They stepped into a corridor that immediately unsettled the delegation. The walls were thick, reinforced, lined with what appeared to be armor plating. Every 20 meters, massive blast doors stood ready to seal sections of the ship. Emergency weapons lockers were visible at regular intervals, each containing enough small arms to outfit a platoon. "This is your main corridor?" Thelkazair asked, his crystalline form dimming slightly. "It looks like a military bunker." This is Deck 47, Sarah explained. We have 213 decks. Would you like to see the reactor core first, or the weapons systems? Weapons, Clickstar decided. Let's see what you're so proud of. The elevator ride down was uncomfortable. Not because of the space, the elevator was large enough for 20 people, but because it descended for nearly 5 minutes. The delegation exchanged glances. How deep into the ship were they going? The elevator doors opened onto what could only be described as controlled chaos. The weapons deck stretched away in both directions, a massive gallery filled with machinery, ammunition feeds, and hundreds of human crew members moving with practiced efficiency. The ceiling was 30 meters high, crisscrossed with loading cranes and transport systems. This is Gun Deck Charlie, Sarah announced. We have 6 of these. Dr. Morathin's energy field flickered. 6? Why would you possibly need? This is the main railgun battery, Sarah continued, leading them to a viewport that looked out into a launch tube easily 50 meters in diameter. We can fire solid slugs at 0.05 C. Each slug weighs approximately 2 tons. Effective range is about 200,000 kilometers. We have 64 of these guns on the ship. The silence was deafening. 2 tons, Clickstar repeated slowly. At 5% light speed. Give or take. Sarah confirmed. They're primarily for ship-to-ship combat. For planetary bombardment, we have the kinetic penetrators on Deck 89, but we can get to those later if you're interested. Thelkazer's crystal structure had gone completely clear of Rin's sign of extreme stress. You have weapons designed specifically for planetary bombardment? Oh yes, Sarah said cheerfully. Though we prefer not to use them. Bad for diplomacy. Much better to negotiate. Would you like to see the missile pods? They did not want to see the missile pods. They wanted to leave. But scientific pride kept them moving forward, deeper into the Dreadnought's mechanical guts. The missile storage facility was the size of a small city. Thousands upon thousands of missiles, each taller than a Vrin, rested in their launch racks. Automated systems moved them with mechanical precision, loading them into tubes that led to hundreds of external launch ports. We carry 12,000 anti-ship missiles, Sarah explained, consulting her datapad. Another 8,000 point defense interceptors. Then there's the exotic stuff, graviton warheads, quantum disruptors, the new entropic bombs that we're still testing. Oh, and the planet crackers, but those require council authorization to deploy, so we've never actually used them. Planet crackers, Dr. Morathin whispered, his energy field now a sickly yellow color. You've built weapons that can destroy planets and you call them planet crackers? Like they're some kind of snack? Sarah frowned. Would you prefer we call them planetary destruction devices? That seems a bit wordy. Our weapons naming committee tends toward brevity. You have a weapons naming committee? Clickstar's voice had risen to a pitch that suggested imminent panic. Of course. How else would we keep track of everything? Sarah checked her datapad again. Oh, we should keep moving. The crew is about to run combat drills in this section. Combat drills? Thelkazer managed. You run combat drills inside the weapons deck? Where else would we run them? Sarah looked genuinely puzzled. Come on, the hangar bay is just ahead. You'll love this part. The hangar bay was a cathedral to military aviation. Hundreds of fighter craft sat in precise rows, each one bristling with weapons hardpoints. Pilots ran pre-flight checks while mechanics swarmed over the vessels like ants. The ceiling opened to space, protected by shimmering atmospheric shields. We carry 400 fighters, Sarah said with evident pride. Each one is capable of atmospheric and space operations. They can deliver everything from precision strikes to tactical nuclear weapons. Pretty impressive for a support craft, right? Support craft, Clickstar repeated numbly. These are support craft. Well, yes. The real heavy lifting is done by the ship itself. Speaking of which, would you like to see the main gun? They followed Sarah in a daze, no longer protesting, too shell-shocked to do anything but walk mechanically behind the guide. They passed crew quarters that looked more like military barracks, mess halls that could feed thousands, medical bays equipped with enough equipment to handle mass casualties, armories that could outfit entire armies. Finally, they reached the observation deck near the bow. Sarah gestured to the massive viewport that looked out along the length of the ship. There, she said simply. Running along the central axis of the Dreadnought, visible through the viewport, was a cannon of such massive proportions that it seemed to defy physics. It stretched at least 8 kilometers, maybe more, a barrel wide enough to fly a shuttle through. The spinal lance, Sarah said quietly, her casual tone finally replaced with something like reverence. It's a directed energy weapon that channels the output of 8 fusion reactors into a single coherent beam. Takes 12 hours to charge, and we can only fire it once per day without risking overload. But when we do fire it... She pulled up a holographic display showing test footage. The beam lanced out, crossing a star system in seconds. Where it struck a test asteroid, a planetary mass rock over 800 kilometers in diameter, matter simply ceased to exist. The asteroid didn't explode. It didn't fragment. It just vanished, converted to plasma and energy. Effective range is estimated at 3 light hours, Sarah continued. Though we've never actually tested it at maximum distance. There's some concern that we might accidentally hit something in another star system. Dr. Morathin's magnetic containment field was failing. He was literally falling apart. Why, he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Why would you build something like this? Sarah turned to look at him, and for the first time, the delegation saw past her professional military bearing to something older, something harder. Because 200 years ago, Doctor, we were alone in space and happy. Then someone found us and decided we looked weak. They killed 47 people on a science vessel. She turned back to the viewport. We decided we would never look weak again. The silence stretched for a long moment. How many of these ships do you have? Thelkazair asked finally. 40 dreadnoughts, Sarah replied. Another 100 battle carriers. 300 cruisers. About 1,000 destroyers and support vessels. She paused. But we're expanding. The new shipyards at Luna and Mars are producing vessels at an increasing rate. This is madness, Clickstar breathed. The Council will never allow. The Council, Sarah interrupted gently, doesn't need to allow anything. We're not asking for permission, Ambassador. We're informing you of facts. Humanity has decided that our survival is non-negotiable. We will defend ourselves with whatever force is necessary. She gestured back toward the elevator. Now, gentlemen, I believe we've covered the main features of the Absolute Zero. Unless you'd like to see the engineering deck where we're experimenting with zero-point energy extraction? Or perhaps the exotic materials laboratory where we're working on directed dark matter? No? Then let me escort you back to your shuttle. The ride back to the station was conducted in absolute silence. The 3 scientists sat in their seats, staring at nothing, processing what they had seen. It was Thelkazair who finally spoke as they docked. They were not supposed to be like this, he said quietly. When we first encountered humanity, our projections showed a species of explorers, diplomats, traders. We saw their art, their music, their literature. We saw a species that loved beauty and sought understanding. They are all of those things, Dr. Morathin replied, his containment field finally stabilized. But they are also warriors. And perhaps that's the most frightening part. They didn't have to choose one or the other. They chose to be both. Clickstar clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. The Council needs to know. Not as a threat, but as a reality. Humanity has not built a military. They have built a promise. A promise that says, never again. They filed their report 3 days later. It was 1,700 pages long, filled with technical specifications, power calculations, and strategic assessments. But it was the final paragraph that the Council would remember. It is the recommendation of this delegation that the Galactic Council immediately upgrade humanity's status from emerging civilization to established military power. Furthermore, we strongly advise against any hostile action toward human space. Not because humanity is aggressive, they are not. Not because they seek conquest, they do not. But because they have transformed their entire civilization into a fortress, and fortresses only fall when everyone inside is dead. Humanity has decided that they will not die easily. The galaxy would do well to respect that decision. 6 months later, when the Kree Empire made the mistake of attacking a human colony world, the galaxy learned exactly what 40 dreadnoughts could do when properly motivated. It was the shortest war in galactic history. It was also the last time anyone questioned whether humans belonged on the council. The inspection delegation never spoke of their time aboard the Absolute Zero again. Some experiences, they decided, were better left in the past, locked away with all the other things that sensible beings chose not to think about. Like the fact that somewhere in human space, in shipyards that never slept, more dreadnoughts were being built. Always more.